Hello, Chris. Welcome to Guide Spotlight. You are being spotlighted. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's been a long time coming. We've been talking about this really for about 6 months or so, but
Yeah.
I think we'll get into what why this was pushed back a little bit. There's been some acquisition activity, but before we get to that, do you want to just talk about yourself, your bio, your background, and what you've written? What would you like to
Sure.
talk about?
Sure. So writer, film historian. I was a professor for like 15 years, and now I'm focused pretty much full time on writing, and very much interested in Hollywood history, which tracks with what we're going to be talking about here. But I've been writing for the Hollywood Reporter, and I've been doing book reviews for the Washington Post and LA Review of Books, and a number of other places. So I'm getting that kind of work out there more, so people might have seen some of that. But that's pretty much me at this point.
That's you, yeah, yeah. I know you've been getting some writing assignments lately because of the acquisition. Because you're basically the film Warner Brothers expert. So yeah, you've been much in demand lately. So congrats.
Yeah, I don't know if my phone has ever blown up quite like it did last week Friday,
Oh, I
with
bet. I
emails
bet.
and
Yeah.
texts and screenshots of insider meetings and
Mm.
everything.
Wow. Wow.
Wow,
Yeah.
I
So
don't know if I've actually ever felt that important. It was weird.
for reference, what you're talking about when the Paramount acquisition and the Netflix, I guess, withdrawal from the Warner
Yeah,
Brothers merger
yeah. I was
happened. That was yeah.
I was just about to publish a column at the Hollywood Reporter about Jack Warner's grandson finally coming on board with Netflix, and then we had to change everything with that news. We were minutes away, and then had to pivot. So, um, yeah, it's been a crazy week of news.
I bet. I bet. Well, we had if people have been watching our website, you've been planning to teach a Warner Brothers class since before the initial acquisition actually happened. I think it was a few months before really all the noise
Mhm.
started occurring. So, needless to say, because of these modern circumstances, you've had to push it a couple times. And even though I don't know if it's settled, I guess we'll see. I'm sure it'll take place this will be an ongoing discussion regulatory wise and other, which I'm sure you're very, very close to. But it seems like the timing is actually pretty good for us to talk about your class. So here, if you're listening on audio, then you won't be able to see where I'm scrolling. And in fact, the the um, the website blends in with the background. I wonder why that is. But you have, along with a few other classes here, you're the Warner Brothers, the title, is scheduled to take place from May 28th to, or I'm sorry, April 16th to May 28th. I think you're thinking about 4 to 5 weeks with some breaks in between. Is that
Yeah, we might do every other week, but that gives us time to, as I'm planning this, to maybe sneak in another class if we want to do one.
makes sense? Yeah. So this is an online class, and so it'll begin April 16th, regardless. I think it's unless something happens tomorrow and your phone blows up again, or between now and
Yeah, I
then.
think we're good. I mean, even if Paramount falls apart, there's still plenty of reason to talk about. I mean, we wanted to talk about Warner Brothers before any of this, just because I happened to write this handy book about
Right.
Warner Brothers that we can build on. But now, as soon as it was in the news, it was like, well, let's wait and see what, because people are going to want to talk about this, right? And I'm also very eager to see and to hear what everyone else thinks about this, right? Just because
Yeah, it's
it's
right before. Yeah, and I think, and I assume you're going to get into the acquisition along with the history and kind of contextualize that. Is that your plan?
yeah, we can't ignore it. I mean, even a couple months ago, I wrote a column for the Hollywood Reporter about how Paramount also almost bought Warner Brothers in the late 20s. So it's like we've been here before. There's a lot of that kind of actually this the history of Warner Brothers actually is a whole lot of we've been here before. So
Right, right.
there's going to be a lot of either contemporary references from myself or from other people. I mean, the parallels and the connections are all over, but um, yeah, the acquisition is going to be, and it'll be interesting to do this class while this news is still evolving. So from one class to the next, there very well might be other things that come up that we now have to discuss. So the
Yeah.
discussion portion of the classes, I'm going to make sure I allow for some space for us to, if we need to go long some of the days because there's a lot of news, we will
Yeah.
tackle it for sure.
and people are going to have some opinions. So, well, the big thing about Warner Brothers is they've made these fantastic films over the years. And let me scroll to the film list. Now, this says may include the thing with, of course, you know all too well with Warner Brothers. There's nearly infinite films, probably several thousands, tens of thousands. But these are
Insane.
some.
I mean, yeah, in the 30s, they were making like 100 movies a year. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I put this list together. So it's a mix of stuff that like people probably have seen. If not, they definitely have heard of, like Casablanca. And then some sleepers that are so relevant to how the studio operated, like Black Legion, that I definitely want to make sure I talk about. So it'll be an opportunity for, if people have not seen a lot of Warner Brothers movies, they can go check off the big ones. But if you've already seen those, I want to make sure there's some suggestions for some deep cuts for those who want it.
Yes, and that's one thing with your class. I think probably people could watch as whatever Warner Brothers film they want, and it'll be somewhat relevant. And also, you of course have your book. So your book will be, I guess, the official or unofficial textbook, so people can always
I'll try to
and maybe ask questions.
To track. Yeah. I'll try to track. Chronologically with that for the most part, probably jumping around a little bit, but I'm going to use that just as the kind of the backbone of the class for sure.
So Gold Diggers of 33, which is the wording is weird with the year and the year.
It always is.
The title, yeah.
Based on the crowd. Like that.
Yeah, big films here. Baby Jane, Sergeant York, Rebel Without a Cause, Mildred Pierce, Storm Warning. I haven't seen, so I'll look forward to that. Stars Born, The Searchers, yeah, and My Fair Lady, of course. And just I'll show you. Searchers was partly the inspiration, or at least a reference as far as colors for our website. So
Monument Valley, right there.
Yeah, that is exactly Monument Valley, and we use the Searchers colors. So yeah, we'll post the schedule, and I imagine you'll post maybe some sort of tentative film list. In the coming weeks, and this is on the homepage right now. You can go to it either by clicking on registration here, or there's a post down here, and we'll have this episode up on a post later today, so you can just go down to here, and it talks more about, of course, the class and what to expect, the films, and then the forum. So you're giving coupons 25% off, I believe, to your Substack members. There's not a post as we're recording, but I imagine there will be soon.
There will be, yeah.
And we're also giving a discount to people on our that are founding members or I should say founding/magic hour. So a good group of people here from the CineJourneys crowd, and yeah, $100 for 4 to 5 weeks. So it's like $20 a class. That's great value. And there's a place where you put in the coupon. And so, yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Thursdays at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. I put 5 Eastern, so I'll be correcting that. You can't have it. Well, I guess you could do 2 back-to-back, but that's not what we planned here. Any parting thoughts before we talk about other topics?
I think the big thing about the movie list is that with the history of Warner Brothers, and this is what drew me to Warner Brothers, is that they were so plugged into the current moment at any given year that their movies seem to reflect that. So that's why it's almost kind of hard to make a film list, because it's like you could almost watch anything from 1933 Warner Brothers and get a good sense of whatever I'm going to talk about early 30s Warner Brothers. So I'll put more thought into expanding a list, but also, if there's anything that people have wanted to watch, I mean, use this as your excuse to do it. It'll be relevant, I promise.
And what we could also build, I'm sure we will build out a hub that will have a lot more films. That's the one thing that's great about our learning management system, is we can basically build whatever we want. So you could have recommended films and optional films, and people can curate themselves and maybe have some suggested. So it's going to be fun. And like you said, the acquisition will come up, I'm sure, organically and otherwise. But and if you haven't subscribed, let me click through your Substack. So you really great writing. I mean, I'll vouch, you're an excellent writer.
Thank you.
But yeah, really great articles too. I think this is all free too. So yeah. At least for now.
But this was a book. The top article that's up there right now is actually kind of a fun one. I think a lot of your followers would like. There's a book from 1930 called Queer People.
Oh yeah,
which
yeah.
they use the word very differently then, right? They talk about that, but it was largely like it scared everybody in Hollywood. Howard Hughes tried to make a movie of it, and like it's been like this kind of, the kind of book that people in the industry would talk about in like hushed tones. And it's fine. It's been hard to find forever. And it's finally Daniel Henning, who's a friend of mine now, but he narrated the audiobook of Warner Brothers. He started an imprint, and this is the first book that he published. So you can get the audiobook and you can get the print versions of it on Amazon. But so I did an intro for that book, and my current main Substack article is that part of that intro.
I'll share that he's also hired for my book. So, and we talked about this as well. And I mentioned Kenneth Anger, Hollywood Babylon, as obviously it's fiction masquerading as fact. I think it's fair to say, but this one it's earlier, of course, and it sounds like it's a little more sordid and seedy. So
it's fact masquerading as fiction from what it sounds like. So it's kind of an inverse of Kenneth Anger. But yeah, it was a movie that everyone was afraid to make, just because anyone who was working in the industry at the time knew exactly who was being referred to in this.
Interesting. Well, that also ties in with Tiber's stardom course right now. I'm sure there's some. He just covered the silent period, so I'm sure there are some people mentioned in that book that are not mentioned in that book, but referenced in that book. Well, so that's your first class. So it'll be these first few weeks of April, May. Really looking forward to that. What topics do you think you would find interesting going forward? I think you'd mentioned Paramount as a possibility.
Yeah, we could definitely do Paramount. I've been playing around with the book idea on that, and I've got a bunch of research on Paramount that I could follow that up as a natural, But I also I taught a class on the history of censorship for the longest time, and there's a lot of really interesting topics there. So I could do even something like just the history of film censorship, how we got to the PCA through the fall of it and how it led to the rating system in '68, but also something like the blacklist. I mean, it's the blacklist era. I would cover the blacklist as a unit in that class, but the blacklist it really is a standalone fascinating topic, especially with how research has evolved on it over the years and how perceptions have shifted a little bit, not necessarily in who was right and who was wrong, but what it all meant, like the bigger ideas.
And how it impacted careers too. I forget which class, but there was one. It was one of our film club films where, and I forget. Waldo Salt wrote some of the dialogue, I believe, but of course he was massively impacted by the blacklist, along with hundreds, and then he of course found his footing with the American New Wave. So yeah, lots of stories. I would. That sounds great. I know you've written a book about the man who shot Liberty Valance. I mistakenly said the man who loved Liberty Valance, which is the incorrect context.
Right? Yeah, nobody loves Liberty Valance.
Nobody does. Yes. So yeah, I've seen a lot of books about. I haven't read that book, so apologies. But I did read the Searchers one, which was really good. Not by you, of course, but do you think that just using a film as a basis, or maybe Ford as a director, do you think that's feasible? I'm kind of putting you on the spot. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I could definitely do like a journey on Liberty Valance, but I could also do. I actually did my master's thesis on the evolution of the Western. So, which is kind of where I ended up getting roped into this other book on Liberty Valance, because I was an ongoing argument with myself and film historian Andrew Patrick Nelson, who didn't really like the Liberty, or doesn't understand why people think Liberty Valance is so great. So he finally started managing this series. He's like, all right, now you need to prove it. Write the book, and I did. But I think a class on the Western could be cool as well, just because there's a lot. There's a lot there, and even people that aren't into the Western might be surprised at what I might present. Certain films in there that there are sleepers in that genre, that because I know a lot of people that just like, I'm not into Westerns. Yeah, and it's like, oh man, there's so many good ones that you just like. The Wild West is such a great canvas for talking about anything. Like there are Westerns that aren't really about the West, but they take place in the West, right? Like, so that could be a fun one, just in terms of the possibilities are endless with that genre.
I didn't get to work it in, but I was going to include a chapter on the modern Western in my book. So yeah, it's a great vehicle, really. And Bud Bediger, Delmer Daves. I
Mhm.
mean, there's so many great Western
Well, it's
auteurs.
relevant again. I mean, you've got the
It
whole
is, yeah,
Sheridan verse, right? You've got all the
yeah.
Yellowstone and all of that. I mean, so people are getting plugged back into that genre and
Mhm.
refamiliarizing with it. Because of course, like historically, we got sick of it because by the 50s there
Yeah,
are so many Western movies and TV shows and books that I feel like our culture was just like, stop it.
yeah. And
We're
then we
kind
have
of
the
there with
revisionists.
superheroes
Yeah,
now, right? Like
yeah,
it's
yeah. We are.
similar. There's going to be exhaustion and then it's going to come back. But that's when the really good stuff comes, right? Then you get the revisionist stuff.
Yeah, yeah. My favorites are the revisionist westerns. Well, yeah, we'll stop now, but can't wait for your class, and I'm sure we'll have many further discussions coming up in the future. So talk
Absolutely.
soon. Register for Chris's class.
Yay.
Yay.